Greetings, and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast that was supposed to officially start back up this week. Unfortunately, what I got for Christmas from my parents was a nasty cold, so that's forced me to cancel this week's podcast recording session, unfortunately. We didn't want to leave our loyal listeners out in the cold, though, so this week we'll be sharing one of our episodes of Abed Time, a podcast that's currently exclusive to our Patreon community. Choosing the one to go with was harder than I thought it was going to be. We've got about 8 episodes available that are all terrific, but I decided to share the one where Casey and I list off the 7 wonders of the video game world. Again, I apologize for the delay for the start of the new year for the Thirsty Mage, but I can tell you that I'm feeling better now, and the crew should be back next week, so we'll be kicking it off the new year shortly. In the meantime, though, I hope you enjoy episode 6 of Abed Time. And if you want to hear more of those episodes, head on over to patreon.com/thethirstymage for more details. But again, just want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll see you out next week. Enjoy! Good evening, listeners. You're listening to Abed Time, the show where you can sit back and relax after a hard day's work and find out all the best sites and locations to visit in video games. I'm your host and semi-retired High Horthgar Pilgrim David Lloyd. And, before we start the episode, I really hope I pronounced that correctly, but that's an old Skyrim joke. But we are here to discuss the people, places, and things that we think would make up the 7 wonders of the video game world. My co-pilot for this guided tour through some of these most incredible sites is the 8th wonder of the podcast world, Casey Gibson.
Oh man, what an intro there! I'm honored. I was gonna try and come up with something witty, right? But I'm taken aback.
Yeah, you're speechless on your pedestal.
I'll take it.
Yep. No. I don't. We were kind of talking beforehand about. How it's I guess it started off when we were thinking of topics. We were thinking of just some neat towns or villages in different video games to talk about, and then I don't know where I got on this train about 7 wonders of the world, but I think it's pretty neat way to look at it in a certain extent. So the only problem I had with this topic was that there was way too many to choose from, and I feel like we're going to shortchange some games and some franchises with some of the different sites, and I'm really going to feel bad about it afterwards, and I'm sure we're going to hear about it. But unfortunately, we only have 7 spots, and we got to go with what we think.
Yep. Yeah. No. It's one of those any list, right? Top X list, which more or less this is a top 7 list, right? Yeah. You're going to leave people out in the cold, and they're going to get upset. But we're having fun here, so we'll. Yeah. I think we got a nice sort of spread of different games. I mean, I know we're RPG guys, right? So obviously, it might trend a little bit in that direction. But no, I think we got a good spread here, and David has done a wonderful lineup and some good tidbits on each of them. So I think we got a really great episode here.
Yeah, I went a little bananas on the notes this week, but that's okay. And I'm going to start off the episode.
The real first 7th wonder of the world is this show notes. Actually, they're beautiful.
Yeah, I think I set a record on show notes this week. And starting off with the notes is I actually grabbed. I thought it'd be neat to know what the actual 7 wonders of the world are. I don't know if there's an official. I think there might be an official list, but I know it kind of and I'm pretty sure it changes all the time too.
Yeah, because I'm looking right. I'm on the Wonders of the World wiki page, and they've got the 7 wonders of the ancient world, which I think is what you grabbed, right?
No, it's a bit different because the 7 wonders of the ancient world actually has some wonders that don't exist anymore. Like I know the hanging gardens of Babylon are part of it. And they don't exist anymore. I think there's like the statue of Zeus, I think it is, that used to be at one of the ports in Greece that no longer stands. So I know, like, there's that list that has some stuff that doesn't exist anymore, and then there's like 7 wonders of the natural world, and then there's 7 wonders of the modern world. Like, there's so many different lists.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing, like, this is the American Society of Civil Engineers list. Yeah. And that one's got, like, the Empire State Building and the Golden Gate, you know? So, yeah, and the Panama Canal, right? Like, obviously, that's, like, a really amazing feat. So it is interesting, yeah, they've got all sorts of different lists. But that just is here to pretty much validate our list. Because it doesn't matter.
That's right. Well, that's the thing. Everyone has a different opinion, and that's okay. So I literally just Googled official 7 wonders of the world. I'm going to list what Google thinks is the official 7 wonders of the world. This is the list that they just gave me.
We trust Google.
So we got the Great Wall of China.
Yeah.
The Chichen Itza, which is the Toltec-style pyramid in the Yucatan state of Mexico. Petra, which is an archaeological city in southern Jordan. Machu Picchu, which is in Machu Picchu in Peru. The Christ the Redeemer statue in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, the Colosseum in Rome, Italy, and the Taj Mahal in Agra, India.
You know what's so interesting? I was actually at work. I was just randomly listening to stuff, and I was listening to about the Colosseum and how crazy the entire Rome history is, and all of that. Like, it's just bananas. It was a really fascinating listen. But yeah, I would love to see the Colosseum in person. Like, that would be so cool. Like, I mean, all of these, like, would be pretty freaking awesome, right, to see in person. But I feel like the Colosseum would be just really, really cool. But yeah, like
it's funny you mentioned that particular one. I'm not going to spoil it because of it's going to show up a little bit later in the episode. But yeah, stay tuned for that one.
There it is. Yeah. Yeah. These are. I'm just looking at all of the, all right, so I think the list you had is New 7 Wonders of the World. Because that's the list I have here, has, Great Wall of China, Petra, Christ, Machu Picchu, pretty much everything you list here, and then, it says as an honorary candidate is the Great Pyramid of Giza. Yeah, it's sort of cool that they're just buildings or spots throughout the world that everyone just recognizes, right? It's like, this is absolutely amazing. You know what I mean? And like, we should recognize it.
That's basically how we came up with our list. The majority of our list is basically neat places that you can visit. These are places in video games where you get to them and then your jaw just drops. Like, you can't believe that somebody designed this, that this is inside a video game, that you're kind of looking around, if maybe it's in photo mode and you're taking photos. Like, it's places that are just breathtaking. Now, there's no particular ranking of these wonders. This is more just kind of a list of 7. We're not ranking them from 1 through 7 or anything like that. But I know number 7 in particular is special for you, Casey, so why don't you kick us off with number 7?
Yes, and that is none other than one of my favorite games and favorite game series from Xenoblade Chronicles. We are looking at the Bionis, which is one of the 2 big giants, or titans, I guess I should say, that fought to the death and serve as the landmass for different civilizations throughout the entire game of Xenoblade 1. Obviously, we got the Mechonis as well as who the other titan is that they were battling up. And I think the first thing to me, right, like you were introduced to these 2 titans battling right off the get-go in the game, and it just sort of, it's so grandiose and big, and it's such a spectacle, right? Like, these 2 big titans are moving. They're moving really slow, right? Like their sword movements and stuff, but they're just so massive, and it makes for one of the most interesting sort of worlds to explore, right? Especially as you progress throughout the game, right? It's like, oh, you're going up the Bionis' arm, or there are different areas there, which is really cool. But I think. And then you've got here too, right, with the Bionis and Mechonis are sort of, they represent the Taoist consent of yin and yang. The Bionis represents life and nature, and that's, visually represented. It's very lush and green, and that's where Shulk's from, who lives in Colony 9. And then the Mechonis, right, it's mechanical and feels more
robotic.
Just not, robotic, more mechanical in that sense. But like I said, it's really cool is that you travel up the legs, the arms, the heads, you cross the sword, and it's just really cool too because there'd be points in the game where you can just you're looking down over a cliff and you see the Mechonis out in the distance, or if you're up on the shoulder, right, you can go look down, you can see the sword and everything. So it's just, it's got the massive size and it's just really unique, and I think it's one of those things that anyone that's played at Xenoblade, right, like you remember the Bionis and the Mechonis and those two big titans duking it out.
Even now with on the Switch in high definition, the colors kind of just leap off the screen.
That's right.
Just the way that Monolith Soft really is just a master of scale. Since you've got like the two titans in the first Xenoblade Chronicles, but then you even have in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, like they just step it up with 7 titans.
Oh, yep.
And they keep really the same spirit going with like these large titans that these people, like these civilizations live on, and really we could have taken one of the titans from Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as one of the world wonders as well, like for in particular like Uriah, like going inside of that titan and seeing all of the different sights and like having the cherry blossoms floating around in the sky and just the beautiful colors and the flora and everything. It's just breathtaking.
Yep.
Along with the sights that you get with like these Monolith Soft games, you also get the beautiful soundtracks that you get from Mitsuda. So not only are you kind of looking up and looking around and enjoying the sights, but the music just suits it perfectly, and it just kind of adds to this aura of grandness. And even though I personally haven't really played Xenoblade X, like I really only just played a few minutes at the beginning, but I just know hearing from people talking about like when you finally do get the Skell and you get to fly around and you just see how big and beautiful that environment is. Like obviously it's something that Monolith Soft is just masters of.
I believe the world's Mira. Yeah, Mira is the planet. Yep. Yeah, that game feels sort of pretty similar to like an MMO in the sense that when you like switch zones, they're very different, and like they sort of switch out. But yeah, that world's really fun to explore. Yeah, I think like you said with the scale and I think the workup in X is really great because like you get the scale, like you can go on the ground, right? And you get a little extra speed. And you feel like you feel empowered traveling the world, and then you get flying, and then you like really like break it open, But yeah, I would love to. I mean, I know the HD version or re-release looks great, but imagine the Mechonis and Bionis like rebuilt from the ground up in like 4K, dude. Like, ooh.
That would be incredible. We don't want to get into spoilers or anything, but I mean, there is a bit of a connection between the first Xenoblade Chronicles and the second. Just imagine in the third Xenoblade Chronicles, like if they end up going back to the world of the first one, like the Bionis and the Mechonis, like that would be pretty incredible to see what they could do with like some new development time.
Maybe even like a dream state within the next game, Because then they wouldn't have to rebuild the whole thing. They could just do like sort of a few spots that would be like, wow, look at this.
But just knowing Monolith Soft and kind of their MO, I think it's reasonable to think that whatever their next game's going to be, it's going to be something that's of the same scale.
Ramping it up, yep.
Whether it's some new environment, some giant new titans or something, or some other kind of new environment or anything. Like, this is clearly their forte.
I can't wait.
I think it's reasonable to expect that they'll have some kind of crazy visuals, and whether it's Mitsuda again or not, they'll have a really good soundtrack to go with it as well. So this brings us to Wonder number 6, and we kind of alluded to it a little bit at the beginning when we were talking about the existing wonders, and I guess to a certain extent this is a bit of a cheat. So this is the Colosseum, which is represented in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood.
Easy choice for the list.
Yeah, so, I mean, how could you not choose it though? So it would be pretty neat to visit the Colosseum, but it's also pretty incredible to scale the Colosseum. Like, they clearly would not let you scale it in its existing condition in real life, so
I can only imagine. Yeah.
The next best thing would be to do it as a assassin and climbing up to the top. So it's been quite a while, I guess. It's been a few years since I played it, So my memory's been a little fuzzy on that particular game, especially because I've kind of been, that's one of the last games I actually played in that franchise. So I did watch some recent videos on YouTube on this particular area, and just watching these videos, just it takes you back, because it just reminds me of just how wondrous it is to be able to have that kind of experience with something like a real life place, but back in the day of like closer to the time when it was more active. But I think one of the neatest parts about it too is that everyone kind of knows that one of the trademarks of playing an Assassin's Creed game is the leap of faith, and to have them have that leap of faith taken from the top of the Colosseum, I just think is pretty neat, especially like when you finally get up there and you're looking down, and you could kind of look out across the area and kind of look down in the Colosseum, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, it's, leaping from the top to the bottom and taking this clearly would kill any normal person, falling from the top of the Colosseum into, some shards of hay, but it's still a pretty neat experience.
Geronimo!
Just a quick bit of history about it, because this is a real life wonder. The construction of the Colosseum happened in the year 72. It was made during the reign of the Roman Emperor Titus and ended up finishing in the year 80. At the height of its popularity, it was able to hold 50,000 spectators, and obviously considered one of the greatest achievements in Roman architecture. Unfortunately, though, in 1349, a massive earthquake struck Rome and ended up damaging the Colosseum quite a bit, to the point where it was no longer able to be used. It was irreparable at the time, and obviously never did get fixed, even to this day.
Restoration projects of some sort, I'm sure.
Yeah, I know they've put people in there, but I also know that it's like it's like temporary seating, and they can only fit about 100 people.
Yeah, you don't want to risk it.
Yeah, and I also know that they've done concerts in the area so that the Colosseum is showing in the background, but the spectators aren't in there specifically, they're just kind of beside it. One of the neat things about this game, though, is that Ubisoft actually brought in a historical consultant named Marcelo Semeneta. I probably was kind of nowhere close on that, but I gave it a good shot. They were trying to keep things as accurate as possible. Now, obviously, they couldn't keep everything historically accurate because they were making up a story, but one of the things that stands out about the development is that the Colosseum is actually elliptical in shape, but the developers just thought it would be too insanely difficult to try to map shadows to an elliptical shape, so they just changed the Colosseum to be circular, especially for like development back in 2010, because obviously, ray tracing didn't exist back then. There's going to be difficulty in trying to maintain those shadows. And one of the no-nos that the historical consultant actually shot down was that Ubisoft was looking to add in the Swiss guards to the game as defenders of the Pope, but the historical consultant shot that down because the Swiss Guard weren't actually brought in until the Pope that comes after the Pope that's featured in the game. So,
been a lie.
It was too much of a historical inaccuracy for the consultant to allow.
Yeah, Marcelo was actually a little known fact. He was a big component in keeping the microtransaction store out of the Colosseum. Also, he didn't think that was faithful. It's funny though. Like I said, I was listening to like a little bit of a history thing, and I guess whoever was the ruler before Titus, I guess, or maybe it was
Emperor Nero,
real son of a gun, and he like essentially like burnt down Rome. Yep. So he could like make his estate. And then after they took care of him, they like knocked his gold estate down. And I'm pretty sure that's where they built the Colosseum, because it was sort of like, hey, here's this ruler who was all like about himself. We're going to knock down his big gold house, and we're going to put something there that's for the people. And that was the Colosseum for the entertainment and just, more of a communal feel. But yeah, it's how cool is the Colosseum, dude? I mean, it's on the real life Seven Wonders for a reason, so it makes sense that it's making its debut on our list here as well.
Yeah, exactly. Would you like to take the next one? This one I know is one of your faves.
Yep, yeah, that is Dragon Quest XI. I'm shamefully have not beaten. I need to go back and play that game. Yggdrasil is the big old tree in the center of the world there, and it is beautiful. I mean, just the whole game, right? Like it's there, you can see it, you're working your way there. It's just on the scale, right? It's huge, it's lush, it's oh man. But it's from the North cosmology, and would be more known to Marvel fans as the World's Tree, the central skeleton which the 9 worlds exist around. In the context of Dragon Quest, the Great Tree was introduced in Dragon Quest II and appears in pretty much every title therefore after. We were talking about the size, right? The size and scope changes depending on the game. In Dragon Quest IX, the tree is on top of an observatory and is similarly sized to a rather large tree. But obviously, in we were just talking about mainly Dragon Quest IX here. It is so gigantic; it floats in the sky. And I think they really nail it, right? Like it's a piece of intrigue from the first time you see it, right? And it gets you excited to work your way towards it to sort of see what it has to offer. And yeah, it's just with the power of the consoles these days, and really the art style of Dragon Quest IX is so beautiful. They really, like I said, not only make it like a piece of intrigue, it makes you excited to work your way through the game just to get up to that point.
Well, that's the thing about Dragon Quest XI. It just seems like a step up. It's incredible how some of these art styles can really just make the color pop and just look beautiful on the screen, whether you're playing on like a PlayStation 4 or the Switch. Again, it's too bad we can't get too much into it because there's just some things that are just a little bit too spoilery to have on the list. And the first thing I actually put on this list was a Legend of Heroes reference, and someone pointed out to me that it kind of ruins or is a significant spoiler really to Trails in the Sky second chapter. I didn't, like, my plan wasn't really to go into it per se, but just even mentioning that it exists kind of does ruin the story a bit. So I agreed and I ended up taking it off.
Well, yeah, on a quick side note while we're talking about that, Legram, just the city of Legram I'm assuming it's probably in all the games, but I just got there. Super cool. Before we settled on the I'm not going to put it as a wonder of the world. But when we're just talking about really like great places we like, I love the vibe of Legram. But anyway, sorry, that quick sidebar there. Jumping the ship.
Yeah, I was thinking of like Legram or Leaves. Yeah, there's so many great locations there. I guess we shouldn't go too much on a tangent since we're talking about Dragon Quest XI for this one. But it was more just trying to tell, explain why there's not going to be a Legends of Heroes reference in this particular listing. And it does make me cry a little bit, I have to say.
Yeah. Anytime we could talk about that series, I know you're in.
But in Dragon Quest XI, there's so many great locations, and some of the cities in that game are just absolutely beautiful. But to see the tree kind of at the center of everything is just spectacular. And it's a reference that comes in a lot of the Dragon Quest games, but it really takes center stage in this particular one. So that brings us to Wonder number 4. And this one was tough because there's so many great locations. Trying to nail one particular one down was really a tough task. But I really wanted to have a mountain on our list, because there's a lot of great mountains in a lot of games. And I originally had on the list the Throat of the World from Skyrim. Just, scaling the mountain and getting up to the top and seeing like the settlement there at High Hrothgar. And then a little bit later on, like meeting, I can't remember the dragon's name, but there's like the dragon at the very top that assists the Dragonborn. And it's just a neat experience. But I mean, at the end of the day, I just felt like I couldn't not put something from Breath of the Wild in, just because that whole world that they built is so spectacular. Just the idea of kind of their mantra of, if you can see it, you can climb it. Like there's no area of the world that you can't go to. And it's just, I mean, just the idea of it just felt revolutionary when it came out. People are still enjoying it to this day, even like years later. And I think the two really big focal points in that game are Hyrule Castle, but also Mount Hylia. And maybe like the mountain itself isn't necessarily iconic in the sense that it's like an area that everyone kind of knows about, but it also kind of just represented, kind of like the idea of like climbing Everest, right? Like you have to get enough stamina built up for Link to be able to get to the top, and then just standing there and looking out at the entire Kingdom of Hyrule from the top.
Pan around.
It just feels like an achievement. It feels like this incredible experience of just like you conquered the land, you know, looking out and kind of surveying. It was definitely hard choosing that over Hyrule Castle, just because that castle in Breath of the Wild it's because it's the kind of like the end point of the game, and it's surrounded by all the guardians and everything, and it kind of represents this like forbidden area.
Well, that's what I was going to also say, right? Is you have that sense of uncomfort. Like, you know, it's an uneasy situation because you are getting sort of chased down by these guardians, right? Like, normally when you go up to Hyrule Castle, I mean, I guess towards the end of a lot of the Zelda games, right? Like, sure, it's hostile. You're going in there to fight Ganon or something. But, like, early on in the game, you go up, it's peaceful. You know, you could go through it, like, oh, into Castle Town. I can go up and, you know, oh, look, I found the rancher. You know, he's sleeping outside. No danger here. Aside from maybe getting caught and just like, hey, get out of here, shoo. To real imminent death, right? Like those guardians, especially early on in the game, you just get blasted and you're done. So it makes it feel even more forbidden and sort of a danger zone. So like it adds like a different dimension. But yeah, Breath of the Wild, such a beautiful game. Yeah, pretty much before we're going to say, just Hyrule Castle in general, right? Then you got all sorts of iterations. Like, I remember even, like, I always liked the Twilight Princess Hyrule Castle. Like, it's just so big, right? It felt huge in comparison to, you know, Ocarina of Time. Like, it was, you know, it was still a big thing, but, and especially back in N64, right? Like, to see how that looked in 3D was really cool. But I remember just the different iterations, I think, of Hyrule Castle is also something to sort of touch upon, is sort of interesting to see how, you know, sometimes they're in different styles and scale. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we'd be remiss not to have some sort of Hyrule included in here.
Yeah, and the other honorable mention I had for the Legend of Zelda series is Windfall Island. In Wind Waker. So just the idea of like that's kind of like the main settlement where most of the people are, and then you have like this great big windmill in kind of towering over everybody, kind of looking down and watching over everyone. But then like not only is it a windmill, but it also has like a Ferris wheel attached to it. It's just pretty neat. Again, you kind of see that there's a pattern of like these developers that just seem to be able to nail the aesthetic of these like grand places, like these Wonderoso or like huge jaw-dropping locations. Like you have, like we talked about Monolith Soft, like they always have these grand places, and then Ubisoft seems to have kind of found a niche with taking like real life locations and kind of transporting you there and really representing how inspirational those places are, how like that they are truly wonders. But Hyrule Castle is definitely an area that's kind of like over the generations still been this one location that's generated like a lot of awe, I guess. Like even like in Ocarina of Time, like you're obviously not going through the castle, but just to see it and to see it there and again, it's just like this larger than life presence in the game, you know? And then like in the Link to the Past, you know, you're the game, that's how the game begins, is that you're infiltrating the castle and trying to stay alive, taking out some baddies and rescuing Zelda to get out, you know, to get out of the sewer. So like, I mean, you're not in there long and there's not a whole lot to look, but it's still just a presence that's there in the game. Like, you know, it's always this kind of area that's, like I said, almost like a forbidden presence, like this larger than life area. But even like specifically for Breath of the Wild, they kind of go that other route with the fact that it's still there and it's still present, but it's like decrepit, which is kind of like the opposite of all the other games where it's, you know, this big wondrous place. It's like, well, it's still this big huge place, but now it's deteriorated, you know, after 100 years. And it'll be neat to see if in Breath of the Wild 2, if they end up in some kind of like the castle's there and you can go and explore it, but maybe it's been a few years and they've did some renovations, so it's more like it's not that you know, run down place anymore. Like did the repair work, they got it back up and running.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to I feel like that game can go so many directions. But I think one thing I really love with Nintendo and Hyrule Castle is they always give you, or not always, but it feels like they always give you a little taste of the castle, right?
Yeah.
Like the one of the first places you go to in Link to the Past, right? Like right off the bat, you run right up to the castle and you get to see it, and then you go back out, and then that's sort of like, hey, we got to get back here. I've seen it. I know a little bit of what's going on here. I got to go out in the world and work my way back. So it's, and then Breath of the Wild too, right? Like, hey, that's the spot. I could go there now and I'm probably going to get destroyed, but like, that's the end. That's the goal, right? Is to get back to there. So it's sort of cool to always have that big imposing area, that, we can get over to, but like, we know we've got unfinished business as well.
Well, we might have to move on because the next wonder might take about 45 minutes.
Woo-wee. Yes, this one can deserve an episode all upon itself. This is, right, like, now this is a city, and this list, right, when we first started, we're talking about different cities and spots we really like, and this is not the game we're talking about, but like Antchime from Bravely Default, right? Like, that's one of my, it's like not really a huge town within the game. Like, I mean, you're in there for a while doing the thing, but I always loved it. Like, that one's always stuck with me. But this next one, a little more popular, but again, another one that's always just, I love this place. I would love to live there, even though it's horrible. And that's Final Fantasy VII Midgar. Honestly, I think they even capture it so well in the original, but yeah, obviously, the remake, it's like insane. Visually, it's so cool. I really love what they've done, with just fleshing out the spots, right? Obviously, it's not 1996 or 98 or whatever year it was. They can flesh these things out. And one of the things I love a lot, and I don't know if I've really even talked too much about it with you on this, is just when you're running through the slums or anywhere, you overhear other people talking. They're having conversations, and sometimes it could be a little overwhelming, right? Like, you run by a huge group of people, like you got like 15 people talking at once. You don't know what's going on. And I remember hearing some people sort of like, I don't really like that. But to me, I love that, because that's like a real city, right? If you're running through or walking through New York City, you're going to hear so many noises, it just all bleeds itself out, right? So to me, it made it feel really alive. And then like they do a great job of, as the events sort of pan out through the main story, all the dialogue's different. So it's not like you run through the one area and they just have their, hey, this is what we talk about. As the plot changes and events have happened, these people are talking about it. They're talking about Avalanche. They're talking about a plate falling. They're and it's like, it's interesting to sort of get the pulse of the people. But just even aside from just the people and stuff, it's just such a big, huge city, right? It's very mechanical, very, there's a lot of, machinery, and it's just very gritty, right? Like, you've got the slums underneath the plates, so they don't get to see the sky, which is just ridiculous. This city is just, it's made to suck out the life energy of the planet and turn it into power for Shinra. It's like, at its essence, right? This city is cursed to the earth, right? Like, it is just harming the earth, but it's full of good people and bad people, and like every city, right? It's just full of life. It's just an absolute joy to explore, and like I said, now that it's really fleshed out in the remake, it's never looked better. After when you're going through the slums, right? Like, I remember just being like, literally just like really taking my time looking around and just seeing the area. It's like, wow, like this is what it looked like in my head when I played it back in the day, but like now I actually get to visualize it in reality, or, well, you know what I mean. But like it's there and it's fleshed out and it looks just as good as I could have ever imagined, if not better.
Well, that's the thing. Just because like it came from such an iconic game before, we knew of all these places before. We kind of had our own idea of what they were like because we lived through them before. To see these like ultra 4K high definition versions of these places that we were already used to, it's just amazing because it looks like reality now. It's getting to be that clear. Like I just remember not wanting to leave the 7 sector slums when I first got there because I'm like, when am I going to come back? I don't know. Like I want to see everything.
Yeah, it's...
Yeah, and I remember playing the dart game in the bar while everyone was down in the basement planning out their next objective and kind of walking around and talking to people. And I know some of the quests felt a little fetchy, but I don't even care because I get to see everything. I get to look around and take in the beauty.
I wonder if they did that on purpose. You know what I mean? I know fetch quests have always been and will always be a part of RPGs, but maybe it was just, hey, we've built this beautiful world. Just go out there and go pick up these things. But yeah, just take in the sight, see the people and the oh god, the life and everything. And yeah, and then
like the wall market, oh my goodness.
Oh dude, yes.
Like when you just think of the amount of detail in the wall market and in the Shinra building.
The Don, bro?
Yeah, Don Cordio, yeah. I might not be able to handle Don Cordio thrusting in HD in 4K.
Oh man, yeah, those hip thrusts. But then when you even get down to Aerith's house, right? Like the whole city is so mechanical. Yep. Then you get to her house and it's just like an oasis in the desert, right? Like it's this beautiful lush. There's like a little lake or whatever, oh gosh. Now that's a spot you truly want to live.
But I mean, that garden.
I can't believe the rest of the people haven't overthrown and just taken that house away.
Yeah, well, it's amazing to me that somebody with some power there, like Don Cordio or something, doesn't just take it over and be like, yeah, this is my house now.
That's my summer brothel house.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's the same with like the cathedral too. Like the first time you fall through the cathedral and you find Aerith, and like the flowers are there, and just the amount of detail in the cathedral, it just looks beautiful. And then when the guys show up to fight, I'll blanket on their name.
The Turks?
Yeah, the Turks. That scene in that fight in there is terrific. And then afterwards, when you're just traversing through the scrapyard with Aerith, there's just so much going on, and everything is beautiful. And then one of the other aha moments for me is after the Sector 7 plate falls, and there's all the devastation, and you're making your way back up to the Shinra building, and you climb up and you're looking down upon the the wreckage of the plate, and you kind of see like you got the sky in the background and then all the devastation below you. And I was like just in photo mode to just looking at it. I'm like, man, like this is crazy. And for me, that was all in just 1080 because I just had a standard PS4, so it wasn't even like the upscaled PS4 Pro version. But yeah, it's just like you said, it's now that we're going to have like true 4K visuals on the PS5, it's going to be great.
Midgar, definitely well worth one of the wonders here.
And before we move on, Final Fantasy obviously has a lot of iconic places. I did want to mention Altisa from Final Fantasy 15. This city is just a breathtaking wonder to behold. It uses Venice as an inspiration with the canals, like the water that's flowing through the city instead of like streets. So it just gives it this much more like that kind of nature vibe.
Holy cow. I'm looking at pics.
Oh yeah, it is gorgeous. And I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but there's a really epic fight here that takes place kind of like over, like it's incredible. It's a beautiful area, much later in the game, but I just wanted to make sure to mention it because like if you go online and kind of look at it, it's awe-inspiring. It's just the attention to detail and the how well they make it look is just incredible.
Oh man, hold on. I've got a screenshot here I want you to see that I just pulled up. It actually, I didn't know it could look so good, dude.
Oh, you son of a.
I'm looking at the Pocket Edition.
Oh man.
I did look up the regular edition first, and yeah, it is definitely breathtaking. That's not a game I've played, And I actually, I've got it free now for, I mean, quote unquote free for through the PSN.
Yep.
But man, that looks good. I was gonna say I am actually blanking on the name. What was Final Fantasy 12? It starts with an R, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
One of the big old cities.
Rabanastre.
Rabanastre, right? I thought that was a really cool city to explore as well. And again, that's sort of, you know, a couple years, many years old at this point, I guess. So, like, imagine that.
Even like Zanderkin at the beginning of Final Fantasy X, and then obviously Midgar from the original 7. Square is certainly no slouch on building things that are impressive. And then you can't even forget like about all the incredible looking places in Nier Automata. And we haven't even played Nier Reincarnation or the so there could be some really neat places there that we haven't seen yet.
Oh, there's just too many games.
Too many.
I want to play all of them.
But I guess we should probably move on to Wonder number 2. So this is the Gothic Spires of Yharnam in Bloodborne. I thought I would just talk about the Gothic architecture first, just because it is like the first thing that kind of blows your mind when you first enter the world of Bloodborne. It's, you know, when you're taking your first steps, that's just like there. It's the very big focal point right away.
Mm-hmm.
But the impressive thing is like the further you get into the game, the further like the detail and the incredible architecture just continues to get more fascinating the further you get in.
It's very imposing.
They just really nailed this Victorian Gothic horror that they were aiming for. It's this massive place, these huge towers that are just towering over you, and it's this huge place, but it still makes you feel claustrophobic. It feels just like everything around you is just there to like crush you, destroy you.
Yeah, I played a good amount of Bloodborne. I never beat it, but yeah, it was like, I remember, yeah, visually, I love that Gothic art style, right? Like I'm a big Diablo 2, like Gothic art style. That kind of horror is like right up my alley, you know. So it's definitely really, and then like to me, like Bloodborne is definitely a tough game, but I felt like it was accessible enough that like, I don't know, I really, that game's really cool. Like you said, I love the vibe. I love that the visuals, like the enemies too, like I remember like knocking on doors, right? And like the people like yelling back at you, like get the hell away. And it's like, oh man, it's like, yeah, so it's not even like, what's cool is, right, like a lot of these games, right, you might be traveling through here and just think, all right, you got the enemies and then it's like a big empty city, you know, oh, a couple bad guys here. But like, I don't know, that was a really cool moment for me that it's like, no, this place is populated, they're all just hiding and no one's out here to help me, you know? And like, I'm out here doing me and I'm hoping for the best. But yeah, oh man, the architecture, it's just, man, some of these, like the game, like I love these big, awesome worlds that just so visually gorgeous. Oh man, I should go back and play some Bloodborne at some point, but as stated, too many games.
You have these just like gargoyles just peering down from everywhere, looking down upon you. And then when you get to like the cathedral and the healing church, and you see the amount of detail in there, and kind of just like these deathly overtones of everything around you, it just instills fear into you. From Software is just another one of these developers that just does a great job building these environments, building these like imposing, grandiose, massive, incredibly detailed environments. Like I was struggling between Demon Souls and Bloodborne, and I know the Demon Souls remake technically wasn't made by From Software. It was, believe, was called Bluepoint, but it is built on the original design, and they took what was there and basically made it in 4K and made it look beautiful. So
honestly, I was gonna say as a joke, the number one wonder of the video game world is the camera in Demon Souls, dude. It is so good. It is so good. Like running in tight corridors, like whipping around corners, and that camera is just silky smooth. Oh, dude, I remember just running down tight areas. It's just like in amazement of how good the camera is. Like I was like, wow, this is awesome. Truly next gen.
I was just gonna say, like it's a preview of what we could potentially be getting. It's only gonna get better as the developers have more time with the system and work out all the kinks.
Oh yeah, dude. When I was playing The Last of Us Part 2, I was like, holy moly. Like, this game is explicit believable. You know what I mean? Like I remember looking out and just looking at like the snow and the trees way in the background, just like perfectly, just looking amazing, like a detail that like most people probably don't even look at, like in a normal playthrough, you know, for more than a second. And I was just like, wow. And it's like, yeah, that was end of PS4 gen. And I know Naughty Dog, they pull out all the stops, right? They know they become masters at the PlayStation hardware. So I just can't wait to see their offering. Towards the end of PS5. I don't even know, dude. Like, I don't know how good it's gonna look, but it will be breathtaking. I'm sure of it.
Well, yeah, that's something else I considered. Like the Forgotten Seattle area, going through that area looked really, really detailed. Really was a lot of fun exploring that in one of the few open world kind of areas. It was definitely my favorite part of The Last of Us 2 because most of the game feels very claustrophobic. Like you're kind of going down alleys and that so that that things can jump out at you. But being able to kind of like open it up with this kind of, you know, how nature is taking over the city and you're walking through each of the buildings looking for supplies and looking for clues and stuff. Like that was definitely my favorite part of that game.
I hope Naughty Dog does another Uncharted. Reboot it, you know what I mean? Like if they want to take Nathan Drake's daughter, or if they just want to completely, you know, but like those, like Uncharted, right, has like amazing set pieces. Like you're literally treasure hunting in like the most beautiful spots in the world, you know? So like I would love to see that on some PS5 goodness. And especially like I like The Last of Us, you know, but honestly like Uncharted is really good too. Like I ended up picking up the collection, and very rarely, right, if I pick up a collection, I'm going to play I played through all of them. I played 1, 2, 3, and 4. Because they're like the perfect length. They're like that 8 to 12 hours, you know? And like it's like playing a movie, essentially. So I would love to, I hope they return to that series at some point, but get a little off the track here.
A lot of next-gen things that are probably going to blow this out of the water for sure, but what might be hard to top is going to be our number one wonder. This isn't necessarily one particular place that you can go to, but our number one wonder is the entire universe of No Man's Sky. I went with this because the scale of this is unfathomable. There's billions of systems that make up this universe in No Man's Sky. It's literally impossible to visit everything. You could have millions of players playing this, you know, online and nobody ever even run into each other. Like the universe is that big. There's 255 galaxies worth of planets that total 18 quintillion worlds. Like just think about that. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I can't even quantify what a quintillion is. 1,000 raised to the power of 6. 1,000,000 raised to the power of 5. It's a big number.
Now, I get that these are randomly generated, but even the skill that it takes to make an algorithm to figure that out, that's impressive. And when you get onto these planets, like they all look beautiful. Like they have this flora that's there, and they have the landscape, and everything just looks so. It looks like each one's designed. It looks that good. Like I can't believe that someone was able to come up with code that would be able to make these planets look so terrific.
What's also really impressive about it, right, is that it had such a bumpy launch and reception, and that the devs stuck to it, you know, like they knew what they wanted to do. And it's unfortunate that, you know, maybe they weren't given more time before releasing, or I don't remember exactly the details, but from what I can remember is that, like, yeah, Sony showed this off, yeah, sort of implying it was going to be things that it wasn't. So yeah, it almost really was like, I don't want to say by no fault of their own, but like there were definitely circumstances that did not help their cause. But it was pretty cool to see them like, hey, we're gonna work through this. You know what I mean? Like they could have just sort of given up and it was No Man's Sky failed, you know. But they put in the work, and like I said, I've never played it, but I know you did, and John Raritan and stuff, and people really enjoy it. Like after it was sort of smoothed over.
Their eyes were bigger than their stomachs when it came to the development time, because you know when that game came out, it fell short of what was being promised. But and they deserve the criticism for it, and I'm sure part of it is Sony building it up too, but at the end of the day, like, they didn't give up, they stuck with it, and even though it's been years since that original one, like, they're still putting out these free updates, which to me is incredible. Like, I don't know how they're able to pay for these things, because they must have enough people buying the game still. But the fact that these aren't like paid DLC, these are free updates, and they are getting closer and closer to that original grandiose idea.
Yeah, and what's cool about this thing is, like, this Wonder in particular, right, is that you could truly get lost in it. Literally. I mean, a lot of our spots, right, are sort of like big focal points within the game, or areas you're going to be going into or spending a lot of time in, but no, like, the universe itself is so expansive, as you've mentioned, right? Like, you could literally just, I'm going to go over here and explore. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to see what... It just seems like endless possibilities. And, when a game gives you, like, that much room to just do what you want to do, and you get hooked into a game like that, it's I think something that, even if you don't jive with the game, you can really still appreciate.
There's been people who have, like, been building, because there's, like, this builder thing, like, you could build your own bases and buildings and stuff, so you see, like, these structures on planets that clearly take, like, hundreds of hours to make, like, it's
the sandboxy kind of thing. Yeah,
what people can do in this game it's limitless. Like, it really is truly limitless. It really is incredible how they even get it to run on just a regular console too, with just so much that can be done in that game.
Some very smart people. Yeah, no, it's definitely I can only imagine, like, the boardroom meeting or whatever, like the pitch, like, all right, we're going to have 18 quintillion different worlds, like, and like a smile, and like everyone else, like, what the hell is this guy smoking? How is he going to pull 18 quintillion? Like, what? But yeah, no, it's definitely super cool. And like I said, I'm glad it might have taken some time, but it got to where it had to be as a game,
But I gotta say, though, the developers, like, I don't know if they've got some mathematicians there with Nobel Prize backgrounds or whatever, but I gotta say, like, what they were able to figure out and how they were able to make this work, man, they deserve a lot of credit. Well, that brings us to the end of our Wonders episode, and I'm actually looking forward to... This is the type of episode that we could probably do multiple times, because really, like, prior to going into the episode, we'd actually asked around on Discord about, what different places people would put on their list, and we got a wide variety of different places. And yeah, we could easily make this list like 2 or 3 times over without duplicating anything, and all of them would be very deserving of being on the list. Like, there'd be no undeserving ones. They would all be worth consideration in their own right. There's also places that were recommended that we haven't played yet, or that I haven't played yet, that I'd love to go and try out. Like, I know one of the big ones, I think one of the ones that we heard a lot was like Rapture from BioShock. Like, that's a place that I haven't gone yet, that I'd love to go and could easily be on the list.
Oh yeah. Ooh, that would have been a really good one, actually.
Yeah, I've never played any of the BioShocks, like any of the 3. Like, I know they're all pretty impressive, but I wanted to kind of stick to ones that I'd experienced, just so that we'd have some good discussion about them and stuff. So I think the only regret really is that Western games seem to be a little underrepresented here. Like, No Man's Sky, I believe, is the only Western developed game in our list. So I think going on to another list, I'd like to keep maybe focus in a little bit on the different wonders that come from, like, Western developed games. And really, like, there's plenty of great candidates there too. Like, when you consider, like, the Fenway Park from Fallout 4.
Oh, Diamond City.
Yeah, like Diamond City, where the survivors of the nuclear blast, like, kind of built this civilization in there.
Yeah, no, that one. I bet you the Witcher 3's got to have some probably cool spots, right? I think Rapture would have been a really good one. Come to think of it, yeah. Dude, you have not played BioShock?
No, I've wanted to, but every time I go to pick it up, something else distracts me.
It's really not like a super long game. I'm pretty sure, like, you could probably beat it in around 10 hours, give or take. Hold on, I'm checking right now. Yeah, 12 hours. So honestly, dude, highly recommend. Yeah, like that one's a really good game. But yeah, no, Rapture, and it's just cool to look around. And you could probably find it really nice and cheap for PlayStation.
Yeah, like I wonder if it's in Game Pass. That would be neat too. Yeah, like for everyone, listening, make sure that to come over to Discord and let us know which ones we missed. We'll start building up that second list right off the bat. We'll keep notes on it and definitely make sure we get some in that, or even go play some that we haven't played before.
Yep, yeah.
I'm assuming most people listening to this probably know where the Discord is, so it shouldn't be too hard to find. But it does go in our notes too of the podcast episodes too. So, or even just heading over to thethirstymage.com and clicking on one of the podcast pages, it'll be listed there too if you're not already in the Discord.
I was gonna say we could really get into like the nitty gritty if people love these kinds of lists. We could get into the architecture ones, right, where we pick literally 7 buildings within games and like 7. Yeah, we could definitely make some more lists if people like this kind of stuff. But yeah, definitely send us those. Like you said, I want to hear the blatant ones we missed, but I also want to hear the little ones that, like the ant chime for me, right? Like it's definitely not a wonder of the world, but it was one that left a really strong impression on me, and I love hearing about the smaller spots too. So definitely write in. We would love to hear them.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, until that time, I want to thank you, Casey, for joining me for this fun episode.
Yes, sir. Yep. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it, David.
And looking forward to having fun again next week.
Poodles.
Bye.